Hello, Democracy for America family, and welcome to 21 to Watch in 2021. We are highlighting candidates, activists, and members from around the country who have been instrumental to our progressive movement. My name is Nelson Pierce, and I am the grassroots power builder for Democracy for America. And my special guest today is Mckayla Wilkes. And we are so glad that you are joining us today. First of all, would you just like to greet the people and say hello?
Yes, hello, and thank you for having me on today. I really appreciate it.
Yes, we are so glad that you are here. Um, would you let the people know what is one challenge that you have faced that led you into politics and seeking office?
Do you mean like what challenge that had led me up to seeking office, or like a challenge that I've had while running for office?
That led you to seeking office. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's like a plethora of challenges. But to put it all in one, I would say just having that life experience and understanding how policy really affects regular people. One of the hugest things that led me to seeking office was being directly funneled into the school to prison pipeline and seeing how that affected my adulthood and led me into the criminal justice system. Because both of those things really showed me how we don't have a system based on justice, but we have a system based on incarceration. And from that point on, it just became kind of like a domino effect of just everything that I was seeing that was just completely wrong with our system.
Yeah, yeah. Um, the and as you've been getting involved in pursuing elected office, what have been the challenges that you've been facing?
Yeah, one of the biggest challenges is money, because our race is essentially one that is a race that is people versus money. We're going up against the second most powerful Democrat in the House of Representatives, Steny Hoyer, who has a war chest of money. And we're a campaign that does not take any kind of corporate money or any kind of money from special interests. And so, as a grassroots candidate who strives to put our community first, we spend a lot of time calling people, calling donors, calling constituents, calling regular working class people and asking for money, just because that's the way the system is built. And so I kind of, don't get enough time to, speak with as many of constituents. I would like to be spending my time doing that. But until we get to a place where we have campaign finance reform, this is something essential to do in order for us to make it.
Yeah, it is. It's such a big issue. We've been talking about how the progressive movement is built on people. It's built on our relationships with people, and at the same time, we can't ignore money because money is critical to being able to run a successful campaign. Yeah. Uh, we love to hear you talk about what did it mean for you to be endorsed by Democracy for America?
I was completely honored to be endorsed by DFA both last cycle and this cycle. DFA is what I like to call one of, I guess, one of the vets in the progressive game.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate Democracy for America, because it's not like, so many other orgs and so many other groups that you see who kind of want to wait to see, where you're at and what's going to happen. But Democracy for America gets it, and they understand that grassroots candidates need that early support
Hmm.
in order to mount these challenges, because Democracy for America gets it. And so I was just really honored and still honored to have the support of DFA, and just to be working with you all.
Yeah. Um, was it, uh, did your team have a reaction to getting the DFA endorsement? What was it like when your team found out?
Everyone was so excited. Like, we were all just pumped. We were like, wow. We were just really excited. Last cycle, DFA helped us out a whole lot, especially with fundraising, which we just got finished talking about, which is
Yeah.
very important. But everyone just, everyone on our team really gets, Democracy for America, and sees how hard you guys push, how all you all push for the people that you support, which is really appreciative for us. And so we are all just like really excited to have one of the first national organizations to endorse in this race. And so, yeah, everyone was really pumped up.
Yeah. And we were pumped that you were running, and so very glad to be able to make this endorsement. We wanted to know, what do you think it is about you or about your values that made the difference in DFA choosing to endorse you?
Yeah, I think that because just like DFA, our campaign puts people first.
Mhm.
And we recognize that democracy is supposed to be nonpartisan. And so we understand that we have to hold our elected officials accountable, whether, if you're a Republican or whether you're a Democrat. And I really appreciate that about Democracy for America. Our values are similar to the point where we understand that people should come first over special interests because for too long, special interest has played a huge part in our electoral politics and it's affecting everyone, horribly. We see that, everything being amplified in 2020 by COVID, by all the injustices we've seen. And it was still hard to move these politicians more to the left even though everything was pretty much on fire, basically
Yeah.
across the entire country.
Yeah.
But we got to see how strong that special interest has a hold on certain politicians. And I really
Um,
appreciate, DF for recognizing that and supporting candidates that don't want to be a part of that status quo.
Yeah, yeah. That is definitely who we are. We have made a commitment to always be the people pushing the envelope and trying to hold people accountable and move the country towards more progressive values. For our members who may not know much about your district in Maryland, or maybe have never even been there, what is something about your congressional district or your community that our members should know?
Yes, so our congressional district, our community, depending on where you are, is about maybe like 20 to 30 minutes outside of DC. We're the home of the Chesapeake Bay. And we are steadily growing. Our demographics are changing immensely, especially in the community that I live in. And so, what people should know about our district is that our district cares a lot about environmentalism, especially housing and education and criminal justice reform are some of the top issues just from speaking with people in our community. But our district is one that is really seeking change. And we saw that with the last cycle, but we just unfortunately came up short because we did not get enough
Mm.
support early on as we needed. There's a saying, early money is like yeast. Early support is also like yeast.
Yeah.
And so what people should know is that people in this district want change, but we just have to get the resources that we need in order to be able to speak to as many people as possible, right? Because essentially being grassroots, that's what it comes down to, having as many conversations as possible. But people want change and we want to be the ones to give it to them, but we need that support.
Yeah. Yeah. How has what has it been like campaigning in the pandemic? How has the pandemic changed the way that you have campaigned, or the ways that you thought that you might have campaigned?
Yeah, so oddly enough, the way that we have been campaigning through COVID is actually how we began campaigning in the very beginning of our last cycle, which is kind of like a crazy story because last cycle, everyone that was working or volunteering on the campaign was studying abroad,
Mm.
halfway across the world. And I was the only one here in the United States. And so we were doing everything virtually, like events, meetings. And so it's kind of like, for this campaign, we've reverted back to our, natural element. But it's definitely been different as far as like speaking with constituents and
Mhm.
holding, all of our events virtually, speaking with people virtually. But then again, I don't know if that's necessarily like a challenge at this point. The entire country has been virtual for,
Right.
over a year. And so it's crazy how things have kind of acclimated and people are kind of, familiar with Zoom and doing things virtually. And so I'm really just looking forward to, how things are going to be this time around. I will say, yeah, I think that everyone is getting a little bit more acclimated to life on the computer screen.
Yeah, I know that's right. Yeah. Um, uh, so as we get ready to wrap up the as we get ready to wrap up this conversation, wanted to ask, what is something that our members that you would like our members to know about you personally, something that they might not read on your campaign bio, or that might not be part of your campaign speech. What's something that our members should know about you?
Yeah, I think that what people should know about me is that I'm definitely in this to win, because it's needed in our communities. But I think that people should know that me running this race is so much bigger than just a race for us. For us, it's a movement. For me, it's a movement, and this is something that I care about truly and deeply. It's something that I take personally. I didn't just look at the news one day. I was never involved with any kind of progressive organizations. And, to be transparent, before even running for office, I had no idea who a lot of these groups were.
Hmm.
That's how, politically disadvantaged I was. I had no idea. And so I am essentially, I want to say, running for office off the cuff, because I'm just someone who just wants better for our community. And for me, it's 100% personal, because these people are my friends. I have friends who are homeless. I've struggled with housing security. And policy has affected every single person around me, every
Hmm.
single one. And so for me, it's just 100% personal, which is why we're back at it again, because people are still suffering. And so I just want people to know that, this is so much more than a race. For us, this is a statement, and it's a movement, that enough is enough.
Yeah, yeah. So we like to end our conversations with a fun question. And so, being that you're running from Maryland, I just wanted to ask if you had your choice, of being featured on an episode of The Wire, which was set in Baltimore, or doing the coin toss for the Baltimore Ravens football game, which would you choose?
I would definitely be on The Wire.
Really? Really? Did you like the show?
I never watched the show, but I think it would be just like cool to be a part of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like really interesting. I'm not really into baseball, so but I'm definitely into like television shows. So
Yeah,
definitely.
absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been a conversation with Democracy for America and Mckayla Wilkes. We thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to supporting you as you run this race.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, ma'am. Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.